The ticking of the clock was the only sound left in the house, slow, rhythmic, and painfully loud. Every tick echoed through the hollow rooms like a reminder that time, though moving, had stopped meaning anything here. Dr. Aiden Morrow sat alone in the dim light of his study, staring at the last page of his patient's journal. The handwriting was neat at first, then frenzied, looping, erratic. The final words were smeared with something dark, something that looked almost human. She says death isn't the end. She's waiting on the other side. Aiden exhaled, the air cold enough to mist in front of him. He rubbed his temples and told himself, as every rational man does when fear knocks, that there must be an explanation. He'd seen delusions before. He'd treated hallucinations, paranoia, madness. But none of his patients had ever known his name before he met them. The journal was dated 2 weeks before their first session. Outside, rain hissed against the windows of the old Morrow estate. The power had flickered twice that evening, and the backup generator in the basement hummed an uneven lullaby. Somewhere upstairs, the floorboards creaked, just once, like a single hesitant step. He told himself it was the house settling. He'd inherited it after his mother's death 6 months ago. She'd been a quiet woman, devoted to her rituals and whispers, always lighting candles in empty rooms and murmuring things Aiden had dismissed as superstition. He remembered her final words, spoken through a trembling smile as her heartbeat faded beneath his hand. "You'll understand soon, Aiden. Death doesn't end. It remembers." The words came back now, curling around his thoughts like smoke. He rose from his desk, journal still in hand, and crossed the hallway toward the stairs. The light flickered again, stuttering shadows across the portraits of long-dead Morrows. Every painted face seemed to follow him, their eyes a shade too alive. Halfway up, he paused. The sound returned. Not footsteps, but a faint humming. A melody. A woman's voice, fragile and distant, drifting from the attic above. It was the same lullaby his mother used to sing when he was a child. The same one that had stopped the night she died. He froze, heart thudding. The attic door was closed. It had been locked for years. Slowly, the humming stopped. Then, in the silence, came a soft whisper. Right behind him. "Aiden, you shouldn't have opened the journal." He spun around, but the hallway was empty. Only the portraits, only the flickering light, only the slow, steady ticking of that relentless clock. And then, from upstairs, came the sound of the attic door creaking open. The attic door stood open, its darkness spilling down the stairs like ink. Aiden didn't move. The air felt charged, thick, humming, as though the house itself were holding its breath. By morning, he'd convinced himself it had been exhaustion, nothing more. The mind played cruel tricks in silence. But even as sunlight broke through the clouds, the air inside the Morrow estate remained cold, the walls faintly damp, whispering with what sounded almost like breath. He wasn't alone in the house. Not entirely. Clara Hale, his late mother's caretaker, had returned to help put things in order. She'd known his mother for 20 years, longer than Aiden had truly known her. Clara moved through the halls with strange reverence, as if afraid to disturb something unseen. Over breakfast, she watched him quietly, her eyes flicking once toward the staircase. "Your mother said the attic wasn't to be opened," she murmured. "Said it was where the family kept their memories. Some doors stay closed for a reason." That night, Aiden dreamed again. The same voice, soft, melodic, calling his name through static and rain. He woke at 3:07 a.m., the same time he'd been born. The clock had stopped ticking. On his bedside table lay the journal, open to a page he didn't remember turning. The ink had bled into new words. "You remember her song, don't you? She's still singing." He stumbled to his mother's old room. The mirror above her dresser was fogged from the inside, as though someone were breathing within the glass. Faint handprints pressed against it, too small to be his mother's, too human to ignore. The humming began again, closer now, almost beneath his skin. And somewhere, behind the attic door, something moved. By the third night, sleep had abandoned Aiden completely. The Morrow estate, his childhood home, his inheritance, had become a maze of whispers and shifting shadows. Every hallway seemed longer, every reflection slower to mimic his movements. He reached out to someone who might anchor him to reality. Evelyn Cross, a longtime friend and colleague from the psychiatric hospital. Evelyn was sharp, skeptical, the kind of person who dismissed superstition with science. When she arrived, the air inside the house seemed to tighten, as though resenting the intrusion. Evelyn brushed it off, smirking. "Old houses creak, Aiden. You're tired. Grief plays tricks." But the unease followed her too. While they talked in the study, a cold draft passed between them, despite the windows being shut. The grandfather clock in the corner, long broken, gave a single loud tick. Evelyn froze, her smile fading. Later, Aiden showed her the journal, the one written by his patient, Alara Voss. She skimmed through the pages, brow furrowing. "This handwriting," she said slowly, "it's familiar." Before Aiden could ask, the lights went out. A door slammed upstairs, then another. Footsteps ran across the ceiling, too light for an intruder, too deliberate to be wind. Evelyn gripped his arm. "Tell me that's just the house." They rushed to the staircase. At the top, the attic door was swinging gently, though Aiden had locked it that morning. Inside, the air smelled faintly of smoke and candle wax. Dust hung like mist. In the corner sat an antique trunk, carved with symbols he didn't recognize. Symbols identical to those his mother had drawn on her bedroom mirror before she died. Evelyn crouched beside it, tracing one mark. "These are old protection sigils," she murmured, "but some are reversed. That means—" A loud crash cut her off. The trunk's lid slammed open on its own, throwing up a storm of dust. Inside lay old photographs, dozens of them, of patients Aiden had treated over the years. Their faces blurred, their eyes scratched out. At the very bottom was a photo of Alara Voss. Only this one was different. She wasn't in a hospital room. She was standing in the Morrow attic, smiling, years before Aiden had ever met her. Evelyn stared, pale. How is this possible? Aiden's throat went dry. The humming began again, faint, rising from the floorboards beneath them. Then came a voice, soft but clear, echoing from somewhere unseen. "You're almost home, Aiden. Just one more door." The walls groaned as if breathing. The attic light flickered once, twice, and then every photograph shifted, the figures inside turning their heads toward him. Evelyn grabbed his hand. "We need to leave. Now." But as they turned, they saw it. A faint outline standing by the attic window. A woman, smiling, humming. Holding the same journal he'd locked away. The next 48 hours devoured every trace of logic Aiden had left. Sleep was no longer possible. The house wouldn't allow it. The whispers had become voices, not just one, but many, murmuring from behind the walls, beneath the floors, inside the mirrors. Evelyn tried to hold herself together, rationalizing every noise, every flicker of shadow. But when the bedroom door slammed on its own for the third time that morning, locking from the inside, her voice cracked. "This isn't psychological, Aiden. Something's here." The lights flickered again, rhythmically this time, almost like a pulse. Aiden pressed his hands against his ears, but the sound persisted. A soft, relentless whisper. "You opened the door? Now you must see." Every clock in the house began ticking in unison, then stopped. Silence. A single knock echoed from the attic. Evelyn's face had gone pale, her hands trembling as she held a flashlight that barely pierced the dark. "If we go up there," she whispered, "we don't come back." Aiden hesitated. His entire life, his work, his logic, his sanity, was being undone by something he couldn't explain. Yet beneath the fear, something else stirred. Recognition. Every voice, every hum, every dream was familiar, like memories half-remembered from childhood. "I have to know," he said. "I have to end this." They climbed the staircase slowly, each step groaning as though the house resented their weight. The attic door stood ajar. The same humming melody drifting from within, his mother's song, now joined by a second voice in harmony. The flashlight flickered. The air grew colder. Inside, the attic was alive. Candles burned in a perfect circle around the trunk. The photographs they'd found earlier were now spread across the floor, each one showing the same image. Aiden, and Evelyn standing in the attic, looking directly at the camera. But there was no camera. Evelyn gasped, stumbling back as one of the photos shifted before their eyes, their faces twisting, distorting, as if something beneath the image was trying to surface. The journal lay open at the circle's center. Its pages turned on their own, stopping on a new entry written in wet ink. You cannot end what remembers you. Then the candles blew out. Darkness swallowed the room. From the blackness came the sound of footsteps, slow, deliberate, circling them. Aiden's breath hitched. Evelyn clutched his arm, her nails digging into his skin. It's behind us, she whispered. He turned. Nothing. Then something cold brushed against his neck. A whisper. Female, broken, trembling. Aiden, open your eyes. He did, and saw her. His mother, standing inches away, her face half shadow, half bone, her mouth trembling into an impossible smile. I told you, son, she crooned softly. Death doesn't end, it begins. The attic door slammed shut behind them. The humming stopped, and the house finally exhaled. For a long, terrible moment, Aiden couldn't breathe. His mother's face flickered before him, both familiar and unrecognizable, half consumed by decay, half aglow with something alive. The faint hum of her lullaby still lingered, but now it was discordant, broken, crawling beneath his skin. Evelyn stood frozen beside him, whispering to herself, It's not her. It can't be her. But the figure only smiled wider. You shouldn't have come home, Aiden, she whispered. You opened what I sealed. You always were curious, just like him. Like who? He demanded, voice trembling. Her eyes shifted, not at him, but through him. Your patient, the girl, Ilara. The name hit like a blow, the journal, the whispers, the song. Everything came circling back. Evelyn reached for the trunk, flipping it open again. Beneath the photographs lay something new, a second journal, identical to Aiden's but written in his own handwriting. The first line made his stomach drop. Session 1. Subject: Aiden Morrow. Diagnosis: obsessive guilt, auditory hallucinations, dissociative episodes. Evelyn's voice cracked. Aiden, you wrote this. You've been treating yourself. He shook his head violently. No, that's impossible. You've seen... I haven't, she interrupted, her eyes wide with sudden realization. Aiden, I never saw Ilara. You kept telling me about her. But I thought she was one of your patients from before. There is no Ilara Voss in hospital records. The attic groaned, every beam shuddering as if alive. The candles flared again, revealing something monstrous. The photographs were changing, each one now showing Aiden alone, eyes black, mouth open in a silent scream. His mother's form began to dissolve, her voice echoing from everywhere and nowhere at once. You brought her here, Aiden. You called her when you tried to forget. Evelyn backed away, shaking her head. Who did he bring? Who's here? A low, whispering laughter answered. A voice not his mother's, not human. You were supposed to help me remember, it hissed. But you buried me instead. The air turned electric, vibrating with rage. The journals lifted into the air, their pages spinning wildly, ink bleeding into one word repeated over and over. Remember. Aiden dropped to his knees, clutching his head as flashes assaulted him. Sessions that never happened. A woman's face that blurred and shifted, his own hands tightening around a throat in shadow. Evelyn screamed his name, but it was distant, drowned beneath the sound of wind and whispering voices. He looked up. Standing in the candlelight was Ilara Voss, the woman from the photographs, the patient who never existed. Her eyes were empty, her skin gray as ash, but her smile was soft. You tried to erase me, she said gently, but I'm what you left behind. Evelyn stumbled toward the door, but it slammed shut before she could reach it. Aiden could only whisper, What are you? Alara leaned close, her breath cold against his ear. I'm you, Aiden. The part that never died. The candles blew out, plunging the house back into darkness. And somewhere in the pitch black, two voices began to hum, one human, one not, perfectly in tune. The walls pulsed like a heartbeat. Every surface, the floorboards, the glass, even the air, seemed to tremble in sync with Aiden's ragged breaths. The attic was no longer a room. It was alive, feeding on him. Evelyn pressed herself against the door, pounding with her fists. It won't open! Aiden, do something! But Aiden wasn't hearing her anymore. Alara's voice filled the space, layered and echoing, the tone of a patient pleading and a mother mourning, both twisting together into something inhuman. You thought you could cure what you are, she whispered. But you can't treat the disease when it's your own reflection. The candles flared blood red. The photographs burst into flames without heat, their ash swirling into the air like a storm of memories. Aiden saw flashes, his own hand scribbling in the journals, his own voice whispering lullabies in an empty room, his mother watching from the doorway, terrified. You didn't inherit the curse, Alara said. You created it. Aiden staggered backward, shaking his head. No, you're not real. You're a fragment, a psychotic manifestation. She stepped closer. Then why do you bleed when I touch you? Her hand brushed his cheek, ice cold, solid. The flesh beneath his eye burned, blistering with her touch. Evelyn screamed, grabbing the fallen journal and hurling it into the circle of candles. End it, Aiden! Burn it! For a heartbeat, he hesitated. Every instinct, scientific, rational, screamed to analyze, to understand. But some deeper instinct whispered otherwise. Remember. He lunged for the trunk, wrenching it open one last time. Inside was the object that had started it all, his mother's locket. He opened it, expecting a photo. Instead, inside was a folded scrap of paper, aged and brown. In his mother's trembling handwriting, seal her where you found her. Never speak her name again. The humming stopped. Alara's smile faltered. No. Aiden struck a match. Goodbye, Alara. He dropped it into the circle. The candles exploded outward, their flames merging into a spiral of blinding white. The attic howled, every wall screaming as if in agony. Evelyn fell to the floor, covering her ears. Alara's face began to split apart like cracked porcelain, light seeping from within. You think this ends me? She shrieked. You are me. Then, silence. The fire vanished. The air turned still. Aiden collapsed, gasping. The attic was dark again, quiet, only the faint smell of smoke lingering. Evelyn crawled to his side. Is it over? He didn't answer. His gaze was fixed on the floorboards, on the faint outline of his own shadow, still flickering though no light remained. Slowly, the shadow tilted its head, in the opposite direction. Evelyn froze. Aiden? He turned toward her, but his eyes were no longer his. They were black, reflective, endless. She's gone, he said softly. Then he smiled. But I stayed. Downstairs, the grandfather clock began to tick again. Tick, tick, tick. Death, after all, was never the end.